Hey, welcome to Outsmart Your Guitar. Glad you could join us. Today in Soloing Concepts, we're going to discuss how to solo without sounding like you're playing scales. We'll get into explaining how you do that and other elements that you really want to know to help you avoid sounding like you're just running scales. So let's just get right to it, and be sure to like and subscribe to Outsmart Your Guitar along the way. Let me explain a little bit about what we're talking about here. First, I want to dispel a notion. You've probably seen people putting their adverts up showing you can play soloing without learning scales. Well, okay, yes, you can learn to solo without actually knowing scales. The problem with that claim is what they're going to do is show you a scale. By virtue that if they're showing you a solo you can play, they are actually basing that solo and rooting it in a scale. So let's just dispel that right away. Now, in this lesson, we're going to assume you know scales. Maybe you don't know all the scales I might reference here, but I know you know the pentatonic minor and probably the pentatonic major scales. And that's really a good starting point. And we'll make sure that each example that I give will start with the pentatonic minor or the pentatonic major, depending on if it's a major scale or a minor scale based tune. Now, the problem that you are having is you sound like you're running scales when you're soloing. And I'm going to be really honest with you. All guitar players pass through this phase. Now, some get stuck there. Others figure it out, or they learn how to get beyond sounding like they're playing scales when they're soloing, even though, in point of fact, you are using a scale to play a solo. The object is to not make it sound like you're playing the scale, that you're more focused on the melodic ideas that you are trying to create and convey to your audience, right? Okay, so get your looper out, get your guitar tuned up, and let's get to it. What you see on the screen is your first progression you're going to solo over. You've got a C minor, a B flat, and an A flat, and back to the B flat. The strum pattern, very straightforward. Okay, so pause, learn the progression, smooth it out, put it to a metronome to further smooth it out, then record it into your looper, and then press play to keep going. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is, now you've got your looper in there, go ahead and just play the first position of the pentatonic minor scale. We're in C, so your first position is here. 3, 4. And that kind of gets us rooted where we need to be, right? And it helps us establish the tone and the sound. So now we know where we're at. The problem that you're trying to overcome is you tend to sound like you're playing scales, which means you might be doing things like this. 3, 4. Right? It's kind of sounding like I'm running scales, and because in effect I am, even though I'm backpedaling a little bit, I'm still running the fretboard. And that's what I call that. You're running the fretboard. You're playing from high to low, low to high in one big long run, and it starts to sound like scales, right? So here's the first thing I want you to do. I want you to stay on those 3 strings in the first position. Quite literally, do not move away. So you might come up with something like this. 3, 4. That doesn't sound like you're running scales, right? So pause the video and just do that. Nothing more. Just stay right there in the first position and play just those 3 strings. Then, once you've done that for about 3 or 4 minutes, exhausting all the ideas, and I want you to do just that, restart the video and we'll keep going. Now, I want to have you do something as an exercise more than actually trying to create a melody. The object here is I want you to jump strings, skip strings. So what I'm talking about is kind of going. So we're going from here to here, here, or jump the octave, octave, and focus on doing that for a bit. Let me show you what it will sound like in context over the progression. 3, 4. And you can see, again, that doesn't sound like you're running scales, and you're using more of the strings in the process. So pause the video, take a little time, maybe 5-10 minutes, a little bit longer now because you're dealing with more strings, right? You're still in the first position. And I'm just doing this as an example. You apply these concepts as you go up or down the fretboard, and you accomplish the same idea, which is to get away from sounding like you're playing scales. So pause, do this jumping, skipping string thing just in the first position. Keep it simple for the moment, for 5-10 minutes, and then restart the video. Just want to bounce in here for a moment and remind you, down in the description, you'll see a link to patreon.com/outsmart your guitar. Go on over there, check it out, subscribe, and become a patron. In so doing, you will be getting access to many lessons that are not featured here, expanded versions of some of the lessons that are featured here, and you'll get access to all the written material as well. Sound good? All right, let's get back to it. Let's add a couple of notes here. What I've got up on the screen is the pentatonic minor scale in black. And you'll notice the red notes are a couple of extra notes, right? And that's where we get into some cool stuff. And these notes, when you look at the scale that includes them, this is the Aeolian mode. So, if you look at this, go ahead, run it up and back, and you can even do it over the progression, right? And if you miss a note like I did, that's okay, right? Just keep going. So you get a sense of what it sounds like. Now, what you get to do is actually put it in play. Just like with the pentatonic minor, stay on the top 3 strings. and you got these 3 new notes. 2 of them are the same, octave apart, but you have 3 places. So play around with musical ideas, staying strictly on those 3 strings in the first position to get something along these lines. 3, 4. And as you can hear, there's no scale sounding stuff going on here because you're staying limited in where you're playing to keep from running the fretboard and sounding like you're playing scales, right? After you play there a little bit, you can move into the second position of the Aeolian mode, and you can move back and forth between the pentatonic minor and the Aeolian mode because you see the 5 notes of the pentatonic minor are actually part of the Aeolian mode. All right? So I go into the Aeolian a little bit in the early help in your soloing series, and there will be the Aeolian mode featured as well at some point if it isn't already up. I'm actually working on it at the moment. Okay, so pause and play around with this and have some fun and see what you come up with. Just staying on those top 3 strings in the first position. As you can see, learning to break out of the stigma of running scales while you solo is not all that difficult. It just takes a concerted, focused effort to apply the techniques that you've started to learn here as you move forward. To deliberately stop doing what you've done and start rewriting how you approach soloing. I'm giving you the starting point here, and in the next couple of videos, I'm going to expand on this to help you get away from that scale running sound when you're soloing. It's wonderful when you get into understanding the musicality that you can create and the melodies that you can find when you apply certain techniques and approaches to getting your solos sounding more like singing, for example, right? Melodic. And that's the whole idea. So, this is going to take time. You need to rewrite the wetware and change the way you approach things. Stop doing what you've done before and do the new things until they are internalized and become the way you approach things. This is how we change our habits. This is how we do anything in life. You have to stop doing what is destructive or unproductive and start doing the things that create and give you the productivity or the results that you are after, right? So that's what we're here to do, is to help you improve your guitar playing and get to the things that matter to help you improve your skill set, right? So that's why I thank you all the time, because it means a lot that you spend the time here to learn the things that I have to offer. All right, so in the next couple of videos, I'm going to expand beyond what we've learned here, building upon it actually, until you get a full set of tools to help you really begin to start playing solos the way you envision yourself playing and the way you hear your favorite guitar players playing. All right? Okay. In the meantime, take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.